Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're opening up the manager's toolbox to demystify the core psychological theories behind why people actually want to work hard. You know the drill. We've all seen it. One team is totally energized, hyper-focused, just crushing their goals, right next to a team that's literally just clocking in and checking out. Well, today, we're going to figure out the exact science behind that difference.
If you're a manager, you already know the ultimate pain point: high turnover and low productivity. It's frustrating, it's expensive, and it begs the massive question: what actually drives human behavior at work? Like, how do you get someone to show up every single day and give you their absolute best? Is it literally just about the paycheck, or is there something way deeper going on?
All right, let's kick things off by defining the core difference between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation comes from the internal satisfaction of a job well done. It's that pure personal enjoyment of a task or the genuine desire to achieve something just for you. On the flip side, extrinsic motivation relies entirely on external factors. We're talking bonuses, promotions, or even the fear of a bad outcome. And hey, fear can actually be a great motivator sometimes. But as we're going to see, it's really just one tool in a much larger box. So here's our roadmap for today. We'll be exploring 4 distinct psychological theories to help cure workplace apathy. First up, the drive to succeed. Then, fulfilling basic needs, followed by motivation versus hygiene, the power of expectations, and finally, the absolute importance of fairness.
Section 1. The drive to succeed. Before we start tearing into specific models, we really need to understand the fundamental mechanics behind this drive.
So, what exactly is motivation? Well, at its core, it's simply an internally generated drive to achieve a goal or follow a specific course of action. And listen, this isn't just fluffy HR jargon. It has a massive impact on your bottom line. Highly motivated employees literally call in sick less often, they're significantly more productive, and they bring this infectious, positive attitude that rubs off on customers and coworkers. Plus, they stick around longer, which dramatically cuts down on the staggering costs of hiring and turnover. Section 2. Fulfilling basic needs. Let's start breaking down our individual drives by looking at one of the most famous psychological frameworks out there: Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, what's really fascinating about Maslow's theory is the idea that we absolutely have to satisfy our lower-level physiological and safety needs before we ever even think about higher-level things like esteem or self-actualization. Basically, we're motivated by our unmet needs. You start at the very bottom: basic food and shelter. Once those are locked in, they actually stop motivating you. So you move up to safety, then you crave social belonging, then esteem and status, then reaching your full potential, which is self-actualization. And finally, a level Maslow added much later in his life: self-transcendence, which is devotion to a cause way bigger than yourself. Let's ground this in a real-world career path. Just imagine starting out completely broke. You take a super risky car repo job just to pay for food and a roof over your head. That's your physiological need. Once you've got some cash saved, you want something a bit safer, so you take a night janitor gig. Bam, safety need met. But pretty soon, you're feeling a bit isolated, right? So you find some social belonging by working alongside friends at a pizza shop. Eventually, you start craving respect and status. Your esteem needs kick in, so you hit the books and score a governor's internship. Finally, you reach your absolute peak, your full professional and creative potential, serving as a state senator. That's self-actualization. For managers, the takeaway here is massive. Not all employees are driven by the same needs, and those needs evolve over time. You literally cannot offer an Employee of the Month plaque to someone who's actively struggling to make rent. Section 3. Motivation versus hygiene. Moving right along, psychologist Frederick Herzberg asked a really interesting question. What specific factors in a work environment actually make people feel good versus bad? Well, Herzberg uncovered a pretty fascinating divide. He found that employee satisfaction and dissatisfaction are actually driven by 2 completely different things. He called the first group hygiene factors. Think pay, job security, company policies, and physical working conditions. These things merely prevent dissatisfaction. If they suck, people are unhappy. But if they're great, people are just not dissatisfied. To actually get people fired up and satisfied, you need what he called motivation factors. These are things like a sense of achievement, recognition, responsibility, and personal growth. So, say you manage a team of accountants. If they're all crammed into some tiny, uncomfortable workroom, you better believe they're going to complain. Fixing that cramped workspace, improving that hygiene factor, stops the complaining. But here's the catch: it doesn't make them work any harder. To actually motivate them to excel, you need a twofold approach. Yes, you have to eliminate the things making them miserable, but then you absolutely must introduce true satisfiers. Assign them genuinely challenging, stimulating work, and give them clear, exciting pathways for advancement.
Section 4, the power of expectations. Next up on our toolbox is Victor Vroom's expectancy theory, which perfectly explains how an employee decides whether they're going to work hard or just totally goof off on any given day.
The crucial takeaway here is that an employee will only put in high effort if three very specific conditions are met. First, they have to believe their effort will actually result in acceptable performance. Second, they need to believe that hitting that performance target will definitely lead to a reward. And third, and this is key, they have to actually value the reward you're offering them. If even one of those links breaks, their motivation just completely collapses.
Picture an insurance call center agent. They make a base salary, but there's a bonus on the table. According to Vroom, they are only going to push themselves to make those extra grueling calls if they believe they can realistically sell over 10 policies a month, if they're absolutely 100% confident the company will actually pay out the bonus, and if they find that sweet $200 commission per extra policy highly valuable.
But watch how fast this whole thing can fall apart. If the company suddenly raises insurance prices, making it way harder to sell, the agent loses confidence that their effort will lead to performance. Or, what if the company sneaks in a 90-day waiting period for cancellations before paying out? Now the link between performance and reward is severely weakened. Or, say they drop the bonus from $200 all the way down to $25. Suddenly, the reward just isn't worth the hassle anymore. In all three of those scenarios, the link breaks and motivation completely tanks. As a manager, you've got to set reachable goals and guarantee rewards that people actually care about. Section 5, the importance of fairness. Finally, we're going to look at equity theory, which is all about how employees view their own efforts compared to the people sitting right next to them.
Think back to your school days for a second. Imagine grinding for 30 hours on a massive report, following every single rule, and you get a C. Meanwhile, your roommate slacks off for 5 hours, doesn't even bother with spell check, and somehow walks away with a B. Remember that visceral, blood-boiling reaction of unfairness you'd feel? Well, that is equity theory in a nutshell. We are constantly obsessed with our perception of how fairly we're being treated relative to everyone else.
Translating this into the workplace, it's like every employee has a set of mental scales in their head. On one side, they stack up their job inputs, things like the hours they work, their education, their experience, their sheer effort. On the other side, they pile up their job outcomes, their salary, bonuses, perks, promotions. They constantly calculate this ratio in their head. And then they look over at their peers. They compare their ratio to the person sitting at the next desk or someone their same age, just checking to see if those scales are balanced.
If an employee feels they're being treated unfairly relative to someone else, if those mental scales start tipping toward inequity, they are going to take action to balance them out. They might decrease their inputs by working fewer hours or just refusing to take on extra tasks. They might try to increase their outcomes by marching in and demanding a raise. And if that doesn't work, they might complain to a supervisor, ask to transfer departments, mentally check out, or honestly just quit the organization altogether. Ensuring fairness in compensation isn't just some nice HR initiative. It's an absolute operational necessity.
To wrap up this explainer, it's clear that the ultimate manager's toolbox requires a deeply holistic approach. Let's face it, human beings are incredibly complex. To get the absolute best out of your team, you have to adapt to their constantly shifting basic needs. You've got to separate those basic hygiene factors that just prevent complaining from the true, deeper motivators that drive excellence. You have to guarantee that their hard work clearly leads to attainable, valuable rewards. And above all else, you have to fiercely guard fairness in how you treat your people. So as you look at your own workforce today, I want to leave you with this one question. Which of these 4 psychological theories, Maslow's needs, Herzberg's 2 factors, Vroom's expectancy, or equity theory, are you going to pull out of your toolbox first tomorrow morning to turn your surviving employees into thriving ones? The tools are right there waiting for you. Now it's time to get to work.